Afternoon, guys. Welcome to webinar 14 now of the Independent Gyms webinar series. We're rocking along nicely. We've had some great topics in the build up to this. So thank you for joining us. 5 weeks today, gyms in England can get going again. So 12th of April is 5 weeks today, which is great. I think Scotland are about 7 weeks off the top of my head. Not quite sure on Ireland, Northern Ireland and Wales just yet, but hopefully that'll be coming soon. So today's webinar is hosted by the retention guru himself, Paul Bedford. I'm sure you all know Paul. You've seen his name and probably listened to some of his talks in the past. So Paul's been a retention consultant, I've written this down here, researcher, international speaker, and fitness industry expert across retention, attrition, and customer experience. I definitely didn't look at his LinkedIn about 10 minutes ago. So yeah, Paul's is well versed in this topic. So essentially, I'm going to hand over. I think
cool.
You all know who he is. So yeah, Paul, over to you.
Fine. Thank you very much, Rob. I'm going to pin myself just so I get... Oh, I didn't want to do that. Okay. Afternoon. Welcome. Thank you very much for taking the time to attend this session today. Technically, we don't have very long, although I think we do, because both myself and Rob have said we're going to be around at the end of this, and I'm going to do questions and answers at the end. So let me introduce myself with a few slides. I'm going to use some slides. I'm going to cut backwards and forwards between slides. This is me, not now. This was me in the early 1990s working as a personal trainer in a gym, and I started as a gym instructor working actually in my local YMCA as a volunteer. Went on to become the fitness manager and then the general manager of that club. And if you don't recognize that equipment, that is a Life Fitness rower from back in the 1990s. This was pre-Concept 2, and behind it is the 2 life cycles. That was me. I was doing a bit of personal training. I also spent more than 10 years working at the YMCAs in London as a senior lecturer there on their fitness courses before I moved on. But, you know, I've done a whole range of things in the fitness industry. I was fortunate enough to work with some of these guys. I worked with the offensive line at the New York Jets during the late 1980s as an assistant strength and conditioning coach for 2 seasons. Basically what that means is I was a spotter. It doesn't mean anything more flash than that. And I like to use this image because my actual team is the Raiders, even though I worked for the Jets, which was, and in both the seasons I worked there, the Raiders smashed the Jets both times. So I have a background in the fitness industry and I've worked and managed clubs. But I took a time out from running clubs and working for the YMCAs to study academically, because I've always been interested in what can you do to keep people exercising. Why is it that so many people turn up full of enthusiasm, full of motivation, but then very quickly drop out? And, you know, it's like, why didn't they stay? Why didn't they stay? Now, when I was PTing and a gym instructor, I was really well versed in training principles. I knew my heart rate zones. I could do, you know, I could design resistance training programs. I could periodize programs. I could do all those things, but people kept dropping out. And so what I decided to do is I thought, do you know what? I need to go and understand people's thinking and their behavior. And I was lucky enough to get accepted to do a master's degree in exercise and health behavior, which is the one on the left-hand side, the psychology one. And then eventually I went on and did another master's in social science research and ended up doing my PhD looking at how you apply behavior change techniques during the onboarding process within the fitness environment. And now I run a business called Retention Guru, and Retention Guru focuses on working with health club operators of all different sizes to just improve retention within their businesses. Today, our data is based on 4.5 million members from more than 4,000 gyms in 31 different countries. And we work really hard with operators to try and improve what's going on within their businesses. Now, one of the things that we've created over the years is we've created this suppose we call it the top 10 factors impacting retention, and I've listed them here, and they are in order of importance. Now, we don't have time for me to go through all of these today. There are other videos that I've done that are on YouTube, hang around on Facebook, where I talk about these top 10 factors. So you can go and look at those if you want to look at that in more detail. But the bits I really want to talk about, and the other thing is, a lot of people think that I only work with big companies like Anytime and the Gym Group. And I do. I've worked with a lot of those big companies, but I also work with smaller operators. So this is Gold. This is Michelle and Ed's gym in a place called Miranda, which is just outside Sydney. That's their Gold's gym. It's one of the most impressive dumbbell racks I think I've ever seen. And I've got to tell you, it's always well maintained, really well organized. People just put the stuff back. It's a gym where people who train there train hard. They're not there for long. They come in, they train, they leave. But also worked, here in the UK with Core Gym up in Bradford with Wayne and the team, and then with Rob Harris at his Progress Gym down in Yeovil. So I don't just work. A lot of people know the work that I do through the big operators that I work with, but I also work with smaller operators, independent operators, as well as the leisure centres, the public sector type of operators. Now, what's the sort of things that we do? We really get involved in the business. And I was talking to a friend of mine this week. In fact, it was Friday night. It was 11 p.m. because Justin's based out in, he's actually in Dallas, but the business he's currently running is in Santa Monica, sorry. Justin said this to me on Friday, and he goes, Paul, he said, the work you did with us at Golds reduced attrition in our business by 4% between 2019 and 2020. Now, back at that time, Justin was the Senior Vice President of Operations, and I did a project with Golds based out of Dallas where I went out for 5 days. We did some strategy stuff. We then did some online learning and re-strategized the business. And then they launched this program in October called One Club. And it ran right the way through till March 2020 when everything got shut down. But when I was talking to Justin, I didn't know these figures. He came back to me and said, Paul, he goes, you do know the project we did reduced attrition by 4% in our business? And I was like, no, I didn't. I said, have you got any other figures? He said, yeah, I'll send them to you. And what I'll do is I'll show you some of those other figures towards the end of this session. So let me get back to what I want to talk to you about today. Look, the thing is, it's actually really easy to improve retention. A lot of people think to improve retention, it's like some, I don't know, black magic, some sort of voodoo, some sort of mystical power that you've got to have to be able to improve retention within a club. It's not. It's actually really straightforward. You've just got to commit to it. Now, apologies for this diagram, because this is one that I drew myself in PowerPoint. I don't have an iPad with a pen that I can draw with, so I was trying to make this in PowerPoint as best as I could from just images and colouring and stuff. Anyway, I refer to this as upstream thinking. Look at the little people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Most people try and tackle retention when someone's already got to number 3. They're already in this river, they're already at the edge of the waterfall, and they're already about to leave. Where's the easiest place to save somebody in this diagram? Well, it's at point 1. That's the easiest people at time to save someone and retain them. But most businesses wait till 3, 4, or 5, and then maybe sometimes they get to point 6 where they're going, I wonder if we can recover them. And that's much, much harder than trying to save them at points 1 or 2. If you're only intervening at point 3, you're really going to make it hard work for yourself. Here are 3 things I would say, and I call them the 3 secrets, or retention VIP. Here's the 3 things you should focus on if you want to improve retention. First, it's visits, then it's interactions, then it's programming. Now, I've got to say, when I work with independent operators, many of the things that I would talk about if I was working with the big box operators is the same, but some of it is also different. Some of the things I'm going to talk about here, you're going to go, yeah, well, we do that, Paul. And I'm going to just nudge you and go, how else can you do more of that? Because I don't doubt that if you're in a smaller facility, the opportunity to talk to people is much, much higher. However, as soon as you go 24-hour access, there are proportions of your membership that perhaps you never see. And I work with a club in Minnesota who they see 2/3 of their customers every day. A third of their customers they've never seen because they access out of manned hours for the gym. So some of these things will be very simplistic, very the sort of thing you do every day. Some of them are the types of things you'd have to deploy to improve what's going on. So we're going to talk about visits, interaction, and programming. Now, we do a project called the 6-Step Kickstart, where we actually take these 6 factors and it's what we work on to improve a customer's retention. First of all, we do clear measures. Then we look at the top 10 factors that I just showed you a picture of and say which of these top 10 factors are really important to you within your business. Then we map out the business in terms of what it currently looks like. Then we create a map looking at what else it could look like. We then survey the customers. Then we look at the RNLP, is a rewards and loyalty program. Finally, we look at the exercise programming and the exercise adherence. We do that at the end. So we build up a big picture of plan, a strategic plan before we add in the exercise at the end. What tends to happen when I'm working with independent operators, they want to start with the exercise programming part because that's the bit they're familiar with. That's the bit they're comfortable with. But actually, it's useful to actually leave that to the end because then and get the other more difficult bits done first. Now, this is what I think's happened to a lot of operators since the pandemic kicked in. Let's say this is an example. I'm just going to use a club of 1,000 members. Businesses shrank by about 40% overnight. Some of them shrunk by more than that. So you might have had 1,000 members. Suddenly the pandemic kicks in. You get loads of people cancelling their direct debits and their standing orders. And you're looking at your membership base and really you've only got about 600. Of those 600, they break down into perhaps these 3 groups. You've got your hardcore exercisers. These are the people who are coming more than 3 times a week. You've got your enthusiasts who are coming at least 3 times a week, but perhaps not more. And then you've got regulars who are coming usually about twice a week. Now, one of the things you have to do is you have to measure what matters. And what really matters to retention is the length of time they stay. Now, something that, if you've ever seen me speak before, that I bang on about is retention is not the opposite of attrition. It isn't. Retention's the period of time between when someone joins and when someone leaves. Attrition is the number of people who've left this month or this year. The opposite of attrition is sales, the number of people who've joined. So you have a join, then a period of time where they stay and then a leave. Sales, retention, attrition. The opposite of attrition is sales and should be measured just in the number of people. Report it as the number of people. We lost 10, 20, 30 people. Never ever worry yourself about turning it into a percentage because the size of your club is constantly flexing. So 4% one month is not the same as 4% the next month if you've sold some and lost some. So only ever report joiners and leavers, and then you can do a net loss or net gain figure. So when we're measuring, we run this type of analysis. It's called survival analysis. And this is just an example that I thought you might find interesting. This is a study we did for URSA in America of 1.47 million customers. And here's the comparison between single site operators and the big box chains. Now, in the US, the big box chains hold on to their customers much, much longer, significantly longer. So what you're looking at here is up the vertical axis, it says 100, that's 1.47 million. And across the horizontal axis, you've got months. And you're looking at how long did people stay after they joined. So it's not January, February, March. It's how long did they stay after they joined. And you can see the single site clubs here aren't doing as well. Now, when you investigate that, as we did, why is it that they don't seem to be doing as well? Well, because the big box operators in the States are much more likely to have longer term contracts and enforce those contracts. And they're also more comfortable selling longer period memberships. When we looked at a lot of the independent operators, they weren't as comfortable. They wanted to do month by month by month. They said, we want to make it easy for people to join and leave if they want to. The challenge with that is they can leave really quickly. Now, I do a lot of research around membership contracts and how long people stay. We haven't got time for it here. I will, if you go to the other videos that I've talked about, you can see me talking about that in detail. Now, what I'm always measuring is that length of stay. How long do they stay? I want to know what proportion of the members get through to 12 months. Because bear this in mind, everything under those curves is money. That's, imagine pound coins or £10 notes stacked up each month. The higher they're stacked, the more money you earn. And in this example, what's that? That's about 21% more people are making it through to 12 months in the big box operators than were making it through in the independents in this study. Now, so retention is one of the measures you want to tackle. It will give you that shape of that curve determines what interventions you make. So if it looks like a ski slope, you have to do something very different than if it looks like a really gentle line across from one side to another. You can split these lines by age, by gender, by membership type, anything you've got an electronic record on. Now, when we do it, we not only do this one, we also want to know this. If you go to the 50th percentile mark on the vertical axis and draw a line across, where your survival curves cross tell you your average length of stay. And what you can see here is that, again, the independence is about 12 months, whereas the big boxes in this example is 21 months. They get nearly 9 months more membership. Now, what would 9 months of extra membership be worth to you? How much extra income would it be if you could keep your customers 9 extra months? Now, I know a lot of people talk about, they go, oh, we talk about it, we use the expression, the golden month, add 1 more month to every member. The problem is it won't be next month. It'll be because they're spread out over a period of time. But if you were adding extra months of membership, what would that do to your revenue within your business? It can be very, very significant. Now, I talked about visits and I said, you really want to know how long people, how often people are visiting. And I use this diagram a lot when I'm talking about visits. And it's a breakdown of what proportion of members have visited in the last month. And this example was taken from an independent club, high-end independent club. This was, I think this one's about £3,000 a year membership. So it's not a cheap club to be a member. But you can look at this, look at the bottom line, 11% of members didn't use the club in a 21-week period. Now, we break it down to also look like this. So you've got my labels as well, hardcore, enthusiastic, regulars. Then I've called the ones who are only coming once per week triers. They're trying to be fitness people. They might have some of the identity of being a fitness person, but they are not coming frequently enough to get the results just from coming to the gym. Those people who are coming less than once per week, we refer to those as occasionals, and the ones who aren't coming, obviously these are sleepers. But that red line is something you need to calculate. Where is that red dotted line in your business? Because everybody under that red line is what we refer to as the at-risk membership. These are the people who are most at risk of cancelling. And if you go back historically and look at your data from March 2020, break this down, probably the amount of members you lost equates to everybody under that red line. So when you had to close your businesses and you suddenly lost a proportion of your customers, it's probably equal to everybody that's under that red line. Now, we refer to that, the people in the triers and the occasionals, we call those swingers. And we deliberately call them swingers partly because it helps you remember them. But you really want to keep an eye on these people. You want to get the people who are coming less than once per week to come at least once per week. Now, I know as someone who was a trainer, once per week isn't enough to get the results. It is enough for them to stay as a member, though. So you really want to focus on trying to get the lowest volume of people, or the people who are coming less frequently, to come a little bit more frequently. You haven't got to worry about the hardcore, the enthusiasts or the regulars. They're coming sufficiently at the moment. It's when they start dropping down into the infrequent users, the less regular, that's when you have to really take action. Now, if you don't, These are the ones who are heading towards, remember that river that I tried to draw with a waterfall? They're in 3, 4, and 5. The occasionals are moving into that position. They're getting ready to leave. Now, one of the challenges you'll have is that when they do leave, they blame you for their reasons for leaving because they don't want to blame themselves. They go, it wasn't clean enough. There weren't enough dumbbells. It wasn't enough parking. They'll always find excuses not to do it, but they want to blame you. The next thing you have to do is you have to develop your retention map. Now, this is just a simplified version of a retention map, but you want to look at it from pre-joining month 1, months 2 to 6, months 6 to 12, and beyond. But not just your physical map, your physical experience. You need to map out the digital experience as well, because you need to think about how you're going to use digital to support you. Now, one of the problems that I see a lot of smaller businesses doing is they try and copy some of the strategies the really big in businesses do, and they don't need to. They put too much time and effort into things that won't actually benefit them much more than what they're already doing. Some of the big operators that I work with have to go digital for consistency. They have to go digital just because, one client I worked with a couple of years ago, it's got 14 million members. They can't do a more personal approach. They have to do a digital approach because they can't reach that many people. So you have to map out your journey. You have to map out what's coming. And one of the things you want to do is you want to survey your customers. Now, we use a lot of different surveys and we use them at different times. So we use the Seamless Experiences score. We use the Net Promoter score. We use the End-to-End Experience score. These are all surveys you can use in your business to find and get feedback from your customers to help you understand what's going on. Now, sometimes you get really positive feedback. What do you enjoy? Oh, learning new exercises, updating exercises, attending classes, and so on and so on. Sometimes you get what we refer to as discontent. No locker, no parking, toiletries run out. I was recently talking to an operator that had the experience where they've had to cut their staff during lockdown. They're open, so it's in the US. They're open, but they've got a lot of staff on furlough. And they had an incident where for a day there was no toilet roll in the toilets. And several people got caught out by the fact there was no toilet roll in the toilets. And you can imagine how embarrassing that is, not just for the customer, but for the operator, and what impact that had in terms of their social media experience, because people started talking about it. So you want to measure and identify what's good going on in your business, what's bad going on in your business, or things you can. And then you want to start building this referral program or rewards and loyalty program. Now, a rewards program is where you do something, they do something, you give them something for it. It's an exchange of goods and services for a behavior. Refer 5 friends, get 1 month free. Visit 12 times, get your joining fee back. A loyalty program is much more intrinsic. It has an emotional connection with the business that's not linked financially. It's a way, we have loyalty to our friends, our colleagues, sports teams, brands, and then there's no reward to that whatsoever. Now, I'm surrounded by Mac products here. I'm on an iMac. I've got a MacBook Pro next to me. I've got my phone. I am loyal to Apple. Apple have never done anything for me apart from make me feel cool. Because I'm older, I've got a MacBook, I'm one of the cool kids. They make me feel differently. They create an emotional link rather than just say, we'll give you a discount. Because Apple has never given me a discount for anything. So you have to be careful that a rewards program and a loyalty program are actually different things. Most businesses start really well with a rewards program and build into loyalty. And as they build into loyalty, you can use game theory to actually increase the speed and the sense of connection within a business. Apple do it brilliantly. If you've got an Apple Watch, closing those rings, earning those points, earning those badges, all make a difference to someone's increased physical activity. But what we do know is, from all our research, is that if you layer these things on top of one another, if you use this sort of 6-step approach, someone who books an appointment is 10% more likely to be spoken to when they visit a facility. Those who attend the gym induction, but actually you can with the right gym induction, you can add up to 7 months of additional membership. Those people who visit within the first 7 days of joining, because that period is critical to keeping your customers, will stay 50% longer. Those people who've spoken to while doing an activity are also more likely to join your Facebook community. So each of these different things prompt one another. Now, someone who visits 4 to 12 times per month is 80% more likely to be here next month than someone who visits less frequently. So once a week isn't enough to get a training effect, but it is enough to keep someone exercising. Now, I said at the beginning of this session that Justin, I was talking to Justin on a call on Friday night late, and he said, yeah, we've reduced customer attrition by 4% between 2019 and 2020. Now, let's be a little bit more clear about that. It was between October and March, October 2019 and March 2020. And we just did within the Golds program, within the workshop we did for Golds and the project we did, we only did the first 3 steps of that 6-step program before they got shut down. And then during shutdown, they got bought by another company. And so Justin's now moved on. The chief exec, Adam Zaitsev's moved on because they got bought by another company. However, in that period of time, that improvement of attrition increased their bottom line by $4.7 million in 5 months. 4.75. I was amazed. I knew we were doing a good job. I knew things were having an impact, but I had no sense that that was the amount of revenue they were generating. They got 80,000 more people to give them a 9 or 10 in the Net Promoter Score in a 5-month period. Now, the only people affected by the project were new customers. They were new customers because of the existing customers weren't going through the new onboarding process. They weren't going through the new sales process. They weren't getting the new joiner confirmation emails and all the communication that goes around that. So it only actually impacted the new joiners. But those new joiners, it added $4.7 million to their bottom line. Now, in some ways, I'm disappointed we didn't get to go and do steps 4, 5, and 6. They're all planned. They're all mapped out. I have all the documentation for it, all the project scope for it. We just never got to do it. So what I want to say is, look, improving retention isn't that hard. You've got to focus on a few things. You've got to drive visits. You've got to talk to people, and then you've got to get the programming right. When they visit, ask them when they're back. When they're training, ask them what they're doing. Get involved in, ask them if they want advice. Ask them how they're training. Talk to them about their training. Don't disrupt them in their training, but find a time when it's appropriate to talk to them about what they've done and what they've achieved today. I've got no more to say today. Oh, that's not the one. If you want to get in touch with me, this list keeps growing. At the top is the website, and then it's the social media channels. Or you can email me at paul@retentionguru.co.uk, and I'll be happy to talk to you, even to have a conversation. We do on a Tuesday afternoon, we do a Facebook Live in our community where people come on and ask questions, and we talk about the different things that people are doing. And if you're interested, next Thursday, I'm going to be doing a webinar which is where I go into these 6 steps in a lot more detail. I've got more time, so I can go into them in more detail. And you're welcome to register that. Rob, if it's all right with you, I'll send you the link. And if anyone wants it, then they can register for that. Sorry, bit of a whistle stop. I'm always conscious of time. If you go, you've got this amount of time. Blah, 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 blah.
That's good, Paul. That was really good.
Thank you.
I enjoy listening to your talks and the stats, and some of it's obvious and some of it's kind of like just a bit of an eye opener. So yeah, it's really good, guys. If you've got any questions, fire them through the chat feature at the you see at the bottom of your screen. We'll ask them out as we go. I was scribbling down questions as we went, but I think you pretty much answered them all as we went along.
Okay.
Well. But I'm going to read them anyway because I think otherwise it's going to be a bit quiet. So we talked about the comparison between the big box gyms and the independents in America.
Yeah.
Some of them have the 12-month contracts, which is why they're slightly better retention or better. What's your opinions on contracts? Because in the Facebook group, there's a lot of the general consensus is don't impose a 12-month contract because you can't enforce it anyway. So where would you sit on contracts?
I'd always have them. I wouldn't have the other things as well. We have seen that if you have a 12-month agreement, it depends whether it's an agreement or a contract. And a contract is something that is legally enforceable. An agreement is what you're asking someone, how you're asking them to behave compared to how they do behave. Now, if I go back to, and I'll try and get back, I've got my slides on a different computer and it doesn't want to play. If I bring this one up, come on. I just put my glasses on just to. Right, if I bring this back up, if this was a 12-month contract, let's see if I can do that. If this was a 12-month contract, what you'd see is across that line, I'm going to go from there, is it'll be a dead straight line across the top, and then you see these little cliffs at 12 months. That's indicating the end of contract periods. Now, if you have an enforced contract, that's a dead straight line, then there's a big cliff. Even if you don't enforce it, so it's more of an agreement, you will always see people staying longer with contracts than if they go month by month, always. Everywhere in the world. No exceptions, no differences, everywhere. What you see is people who sign up, even if you don't enforce a contract, stay longer than people who go month by month, always.
So they kind of like feel bought into the fact they're going to stick around longer.
Yeah, because in their, as they come in and they go, I want to join, you're going to have some, I'm not a salesperson, but you're going to have some options. You're going to go, my preference would be paid up front for a year, month by month, and a 12-month contract. Now, there'll be a price difference on those, and you can work out, when you know the shapes of those curves, you can work out what the actual price difference should be, rather than going, I think it should be 5% or 10%, because you need to know what the average lifetime value of each contract is worth. But we always see the same thing. Even there's a company called Lifestyle Fitness, who James Lawrence is the current CEO, based predominantly in the northeast of England. Sold 21 of their low-cost businesses to the gym group a few years ago. We actually did a project with them where we had 3 membership types, month by month, upfront, and 12-month contract. The way it was presented, and I can't remember the exact figures for the multiple, but it was month by month, it was $17.99. 12-month agreement was 12 times $17.99, and I think it's like £264 or something. So we go, you sign up for 12 months, it's £264. You sign up by month, it's $17.99. If you want to pay up front for the year, it's $264, but you also get 2 extra months of membership. So what financially people were actually paying was exactly the same. Take out the paid up front, because you can. We tracked when they joined and when they stopped visiting, not just when they stopped paid. The 12-month smashed the month by month agreement, absolutely smashed it. And it was the same amount of money, because I was trying it from a behavioral economics perspective. When you're trying to work out, sometimes you see these things for a subscription, a magazine, hard copy, £20 a month, digital copy, $5 a month, combination of the two, $21 a month. It's like, it's using irrational logic to get people to do things. And we were trying it there. We would always do it. I would always recommend it.
Always layering contracts. I like it. A couple of questions come through from the group. Top 5 questions you'd put into a survey to members.
I probably wouldn't do even 5. There'd be 5 things I'd want to capture. First thing I'd want to capture is, and predominantly you can do the first one by sight, gender. I want to know age band, and I would use the Office of National Statistics age bands for that. I'd want to know how long they've been a member in months, because when you're surveying people, you get a different response from someone who's been a member a month for someone who's been a member 36 months, because you might want to split those up. Then I'd ask them the Net Promoter Score, and there are versions of the Net Promoter Score, and the way people report the Net Promoter Score isn't always the same. So I wouldn't get too hung up on other people's NPS, but I'd say based on your visit today, what's the likelihood of you recommending a friend or colleague to join this club? 0 to 10. Me, I always use the 0 to 10 scale. I don't use the 1 to 10. And then I'd look for comments. And then I'd take the comments and I'd put the comments into buckets of, was this a product fail? Was this an expectation fail? Was this a service failure? There's about 6 buckets you can put them into. And you'll start to see actually they're all falling into 1 or 2 buckets. And those are the things we need to address. Otherwise, you'll get lots and lots of comments. And if you haven't got somewhere to put them organisationally, you'll find you're just trying to tick off boxes each time. But there could be something that's systematic. But that's when you go back to that diagram out of the river and go, what is causing that problem? Can I do something further upstream that stops that problem in the first place? My analogy is, how do you stop them falling in the river, not how do you get them out the river? So you sometimes, even if you've got a problem and it's identified, put it back or go back upstream. The other thing I would do is I'd always publish all the positive ones where staff are mentioned. So if someone says, I had a really good experience with Rob, I was looking to get some equipment, he did a really good job with me, blah, 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 I would always make them public. I'd make them public to the other customers, and I would make it public so staff and Rob gets to see that, because that has a positive knock-on effect.
I'll be publishing that a lot, Paul, to be honest. I'll have to code it.
Yeah, I have everywhere, mate. The only other one I would ask is, when was the last time a member of staff spoke to you?
I like that one, because I think that's from my days back at David Lloyd, it was you talk to every single person when they came in the door.
Yeah.
Just say hello. So yeah, I agree with that one.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Emma also asked, have you got an example of a loyalty plan that could create an emotional link, or how you'd go about creating an emotional link?
A simple loyalty one is getting members of your club to engage in a group activity, something like a charitable walk, a run, even if something they can all do together. So what you have to do is you have to create what's called an epic quest, something that's bigger than the individual. Now you can do it in the club. You could do some sort of competition where everybody gets to join in. I'm a fan of competitions that everybody can win. And I don't mean that to water them down. I'm thinking, can we as a club row 100,000 kilometres on a Concept 2 this month? Rather than who can bench press the most. So it's those types of things. But where you can get people doing things together creates a sense of loyalty. Jeff and Terry Bissonette, who are out in Minnesota, they have a thing where you can earn a t-shirt. And you can earn a t-shirt if you visit their club 12 times a month for 12 months straight. And it's the 144 Club. Now, in a club of 1,000 members, they give away almost 300 t-shirts to people who are visiting 12 times a month for 12 months. And then they put all their names on the wall and they do photographs. Those are the sorts of things that create loyalty. You have to earn that rather than it be given to you. So that's a crossover one, because that starts as a reward program but becomes a loyalty program, but it's simple to deploy.
Yeah, I like that. I think the similar thing here, I think Tribe, the studio-based classes up in the north, and they're spreading around. They do a t-shirt when you hit certain milestones of classes that you've been to. So it's a class-based program, 50 classes, 100 classes, and so on. And I think unrelated, Parkrun do the same as well. So they'll give you a t-shirt when you hit a certain number of things, and it keeps you engaged and keeps you coming back.
Well, Parkrun will allow you to buy a t-shirt They won't give you one.
Wow.
They'll
Yeah.
allow you to buy one. Here's something though that I like. If you're doing, so they do the program where it's 12 by 12. Each month they put a list on the wall of all the people who've been in 12 times. That way you only have to you can start being successful in month 1. You haven't got to wait 12 months. It's like if you join Peloton today, Peloton will ask you about signing up to their year-long program. Now, for a lot of people who are new to exercise, signing up to the idea of a year-long program and committing to that straight up is really, really tough. They might commit financially to it, but actually saying, yeah, I'm going to come 3 times a week for the really, really tough. So give them early wins.
Yeah.
You know, find things they can be successful early on.
Yeah. So that whole conversation there kind of ties in. I was going to ask about gym challenges, but I think you summed it up in that you do challenges and events where everybody has a chance of being successful.
Yeah, and I wouldn't not do the other ones where it's like who's the fastest, who's the strongest, but I would do them less frequently. You know, there's a thing again that Jeff and Terry do called Day of the Deadlifts. They do it on, it's not on Halloween, but it's around Halloween because it coincides with the Day of the Dead in Mexico, and the t-shirts are all in that style, and it's it's 1 RM deadlift, and like what's your best against your age group, and then they go what's the total weight lifted within the club on that day.
I like that because there's still those guys that want that hardcore challenge, don't they?
Yeah,
you're the generalist but also the hardcore stuff.
Yeah.
Right, I've got 2 more questions. If anyone else has got any more, fire them through. The last one, and it's a bit of a I don't know if it's a swear word, but inductions. When you're talking about contact with your members and that journey, whether you call it an induction or a welcome or whatever, how would you strategize inductions or that kind of meeting, that first meeting?
Right. I think what you have to do is, and it's very specific within independent operators, because often within independent operator clubs, you get a higher proportion of experienced exercisers. I would always offer it. I would always have an induction program. I'd brand it so it has a name, and I would offer it to everybody. But I would, for those people who are experienced exercisers, give them the opportunity to decline it. So you don't have to I wouldn't put everybody through an induction. You know, because actually if I turned up at one of your gyms today and someone said to me, oh, before you can use the equipment, you've got to have an induction. And the induction consists of you showing me resistance machines and cardio machines, when my workout consists of free weights and kettlebells. I'm going to be pissed off. But what you can do is you can build them around, and this is what we spend a lot of time with operators doing, build them around what the customer needs to be successful. So you can have a formatted induction process for those people who are new to exercise. And that's one of the major things we did with Golds. You know, we looked at how they were onboarding people, and they weren't. You know, basically their approach was, you sign up and join. During the signing up process, someone from the personal training department comes over and tries to sell you PT. And if you don't buy PT, well, then good luck. Off you go. There's the kit. We changed all of that. We even changed the point of sale for personal training. And it's one of the reasons Justin was saying to me they'd had such success, because actually the customers were being successful. They weren't setting the customers up to fail. So I'd always have them. You know, the focus of my PhD was on how can you include behavior change techniques in an onboarding process to keep people longer. Now, we did a 1 hour, the control group was a standard 1 hour gym induction. You know, a few resistance machines, a few cardiovascular machines, some teaching and some practice, write a program. Our intervention was that plus some additional sessions a week apart for 4 weeks, which were all focused on behavioral psychology. The people who went through the intervention stayed on average 7 months extra. So for an extra hour of support, they did an hour induction plus an hour of support spread out. They stayed an extra 7 months. You know, you work out what that's worth to you in terms of, you know, what you might be paying someone to support someone for an hour. You know, is it worth it for an extra 7 months? Yeah, I have them. I have them every single time.
So every month's money at what, 30 quid plus per
Yeah.
gym average, probably. Well, I think our average was £45 a head. £45 a month was our research in the group.
Yeah.
So definitely worth it. 100%. One more question around the member type. So you talked about the at-risk group, the swingers. How much work would you? They're the focus, obviously, to stop them leaving. But how much of your time would you spend looking after those, or sort of attention?
About 80-90%.
Yeah.
Because the hardcore trainers, who tend to be the one we want to talk to because they're most like us, they're going to come anyway. You know, these are the people who when we reopen, when the doors open, if they usually come at 6 a.m, they'll be outside at 5:59, waiting to get in. You're not going to have to encourage them. It's the people who come less frequently, who haven't built up that routine of exercise, and really they haven't built up what I call the exercise identity. They don't see themselves as an exerciser yet. Now, over time, you build up an exercise identity. So I still use this example because it is true to me. I still think of myself as someone who did jiu-jitsu and full contact karate. All right. I have that in, that's me. I see other people doing it. I see posts. I see Dean Hodgkins putting stuff up. I'm like, yeah. I'm in that group. I haven't done that for 30 years. But it was so part of my identity, I still see it. I was a competitive cyclist. I haven't rode competitively for 20 years, but I still think of myself as a competitive cyclist. So people build up, even people who are regular exercisers, even when they're not exercising, think of themselves as exercisers.
Yeah, I agree with that one, because I'd say I'd put myself as a runner at the minute.
Yeah.
But anyone, luckily these screens only from my chest up. So I'm in that bracket. Brilliant. Right, one last question, more of a joke really. When you see a £4.7 million extra revenue on a business, do you ever wish you was working on a revenue share model instead?
Yeah. I was on a good retainer, and I was on originally it was on a 1%. So I would have got 1% bonus.
Nice.
On whatever they generated, which, if you want to work it out, was $47,000 would have been the bonus.
Nice.
But a lot of operators don't want to do that. And if you fold your arms and go, well, it's the only way I work, they go, okay, fine, we'll go somewhere else.
Yeah,
so it was a good five. I'm not going to pretend it was a good 5-figure retainer. It wasn't a 6-figure retainer. It was a good 5-figure retainer.
Oh, yeah. We'll get you there one day, Paul.
But it's only a few hours work. It wasn't a year.
Love it. Brilliant. Right, Paul, that's all the questions that have come through. That's all I've got on my list. So I'm going to thank you for hosting this week. Anybody obviously who's listening, if you want to reach out to Paul, we'll pop his contact details with the video when we post it, hopefully later this evening. Feel free to catch up. You'll probably see a bit more of Paul as well throughout the year. We've got some plans which we're finalising around some physical events. I think we've penciled him in for one, and as long as it goes to plan, we'll let you know about those. So yeah, Paul, thank you very much. Everyone else, there's another webinar on Wednesday, which is a company called Your Gym Sports Performance. They are a level 4 strength and conditioning qualifications provider, so they're going to be jumping on to keep an eye out for that, and then we'll see you on there. Paul, much appreciated. Thank you for your time.
Take care.
See you later.